Welcome to the Outdoor View, your window into what's happening in the great outdoors. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Maria Malloy. She's going to tell you a little bit about herself, but I think she's kind of the typical American here in this country. And I want to chat with her a little about her views of what's happening in the outdoors and some of the various activities that are so important to those who love the outdoors. Hey, Maria, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. I'm in the backyard just chilling.
Doesn't get any
In
better
my
than
new
that.
property.
Right. We're going to talk a little bit about that.
That's right.
Hey, tell our viewers a little bit about yourself.
So I've lived in San Jose since 1974. I grew up in one elementary school, one junior high school, one high school, and then I had my oldest son. I got a job with the city of San Jose. I just retired after 30 years with the city of San Jose in the housing department last year. And so my entire life has been in a big city, experiencing, things that are right at your doorstep, having neighbors right next to you. So that's the kind of environment I've lived in all my life.
Well, obviously you don't live in that environment now because as
I do not.
mentioned, you're sitting in your backyard. That doesn't look like downtown San Jose to me. So
No,
you've
it
made some
doesn't.
changes in your life. So what have you done in the last, 6 or 7 months?
So first of all, what I want to start with is that because of my brother-in-law, Bill, who is speaking right now, and my sister, Wanda, they moved to Shingle Springs, and just going to their home, every time I would go to their home, and they will state this, I felt like I was on vacation. I'd look out their back window and there'd be deer outside. I'd look out there's turkey. I mean, it was just such a peaceful way of living. And I found myself that when I went to go visit you guys, I'd always be outside with my camera, videotaping, of the wildlife that was out there. And I remember just telling you guys, if you ever need a dog sitter, I'm there. I'll be there, because it was just a place where I rejuvenated. And I felt like every time I came back to San Jose, I mean, I loved my city that I worked in. I loved the city that I grew up in. There was just not a whole lot of downtime. And being in the environment where there's a lot of land, a lot of nature, I just feel like it really does rejuvenate me, and it gives me a sense of peace. We will always have friendships at our fingertips with our phones, and having people come over, but the environment that you're in, you don't always have that. And I can say that firsthand from coming from San Jose, now living in Placerville. The peace and the calm that comes along with this is just amazing.
So would it be fair to say you don't have a lot of regrets about moving from the city to the country?
I have no regrets. And, to be completely honest with you, COVID was extremely difficult. However, there was such a great silver lining, because it happened in a time where I was retiring with the city of San Jose after 30 years. And at any time, did I ever think I'd move out of San Jose? No, not at all. With COVID, it just became very difficult to have relationships, to move around and feel like you could live life. It was a very difficult time, which I started to spiral a little bit because I'm such an extrovert that I found myself seeking something different. And so with that seeking, I would continually come up to your house, and visit, and I just felt this sense of peace. I knew where I needed to be. And I have no regrets, because I still have the same friendships that I had in San Jose. People have visited me here and they love the property. I feel like I can host events here, which I have. A very different environment than San Jose. Again, I love my home, my townhome. I had neighbors right against me. If I ever had a gathering, it was that I had to call the dentist office across the street to say, hey, can we use your parking across the street? Right. I don't have that problem now. I can host a gathering, and it's just very comfortable. I've got my livestock here, my goats that are the entertainment also, that are maintaining my property. It's just a great place to be.
Yeah, no, very good. Hey, well, while you were in the city, did you get much? You mentioned deer and turkeys and so forth. Did you get much exposure to wildlife management, wildlife conservation efforts, or any of those issues at all?
Bill, to be completely honest, no. And the reason behind that, I believe, is that we don't have a whole lot of land to go hunting and to do that on. So what we're used to in the big city is that if you want a turkey for Thanksgiving, you go buy it at the grocery store, right?
Right.
And that's what we're used to doing. As I'm learning more about the environment and the balance of wildlife, there is so much I have gained. Again, I was a big one of that. Oh my gosh, killing turkey and killing deer. Oh my gosh, you don't want to do that. I have learned so much about the balance of life and why we do the things we do, why we have deer season, why we have turkey season. I've learned about my goats. The reason I have my goats, and I had no idea why I'd have goats, but I found out that they make sure that I don't have they prevent fire danger here, right? They keep everything down. With that said, we have to protect this livestock. And so protecting the livestock means you've got to protect them from mountain lions and all that stuff. So it's a very different way of living. With that said, I've gained a lot of knowledge. I can say that I've changed my mindset on a lot of things because, again, you don't get that in San Jose. You don't understand it. Again, you go to the Safeway to get a turkey for Thanksgiving. The difference here is that there are hunters here, and thank God for that, who capture these turkeys who have been able to live a free life, right? Been able to live a life on the land without having to be caged or whatever. And they're able to have a turkey on their table in the same sense that somebody going to Safeway can get a turkey on their table. It's just in different wrapping. And so I've learned so much about the need for hunting. One thing that I admire about you, Bill, is that every time you hunt, after you have hunted an animal, you pray over it. And you pray and you mentioned that, God, thank you for providing this food for my family. Thank you for providing, this wildlife on earth for us. And again, if it weren't coming from the deer that you were able to bring to your family, it would be in our butcher stores. It would be in our Safeway, right? Picking it up from Safeway. So I'm just learning a whole lot about why it's needed here. And it's really changing my views. Not to say that I want to be a part of hunting or I want to be a part of shooting, because I don't know if that will ever change. It might. But I just understand the need for it here. And I'm glad I'm being educated.
No, I appreciate that, and I'm glad that you're open-minded to being educated. You mentioned hunting, and we could talk for hours about the role of hunting when it comes to generating revenue for the state's wildlife management efforts. I'll give you just a couple of quick numbers. Just last year alone, in 2020, $50 million were generated for the Department of Fish and Wildlife, which is about an eighth of their total budget, generated by hunters who buy hunting licenses, stamps, tags, so on and so forth. But it's not just that; it's the conservation organizations that those hunters that belong to, the Ducks Unlimited, the California Waterfowls, the California Deer Association, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, the National Wild Turkey Federation. I can go on and on and on and on and on, because I have the honor and pleasure of working with all those groups that are made up of hunters that are generating millions and millions of additional dollars that go on the ground in partnership with the Department of Fish and Wildlife to do good things on the ground for a wildlife habitat. That stuff just doesn't happen. I mean, in today's environment, you can't just say, oh, we got to leave the environment to stay in balance. No, it won't anymore, because we've split it up into these little postage stamp pieces with roads and developments and so on and so forth. So man has to go in and basically manage these wildlife. Hunters play a major role in that, and they generate tremendous amount of revenue, while they're doing it. That's important to both game and non-game species. We're going to talk about that some more in some future interviews here, but as far as hunting is concerned, so would it be fair to say when you were in the city, you probably, if not you, I think a lot of your friends and neighbors and coworkers probably had a negative view of hunting because they viewed it as simply killing animals, right?
I'm one guilty of that. Not to say that I'm guilty of it. It's just a natural, I think it's natural for people to be like, we don't want to kill things. We don't want to, they're beautiful or whatever they may be. I had to learn there's rhyme and reason behind what we're doing. You know, we don't need to be overpopulated in something, and that would be a problem if we were overpopulated. Again, the food that's in Safeway or in Rayleigh's or wherever you're getting that food the same way that the hunters are hunting for food out here, right? And so, what makes it easier for me to understand personally was that, yeah, I did go to Safeway to pick up my turkey. Great. And I put it in the oven, right? I did go to Safeway to pick up my meat. Great. And it's ready to put in the oven, right? Well, it's no different than a hunter hunting for his food out here, right? And bringing it back to their family for meal. And I had to change that mindset that, this meat that came in from Safeway or Rayleigh's or whatever wasn't something grown from the ground. It was actually from an animal that had to have been, put down. And so that has been my mindset and my mind changed that, the turkey I could buy at Safeway, I could also get it from a hunter here who, again, this turkey has lived its life on the land and had a great life. And again, there's turkey season because we don't want to be overpopulated, but I could get that same turkey, right? And be blessed with it in a way where I can have it on the table. Do I want to be part of the plucking the feathers out and all that stuff? I don't want to be a part of it, but I do understand the importance of hunting and putting that on the table for people. In the same sense, we put food on the table that's at Safeway and Rayleigh's. It's the same concept, right?
Right. And I think everybody, whether they live in the country or live in the city, see the value of not pinning up domestic animals that are born and raised, to end up in a Safeway or a Bel Air. I mean, we've seen a lot of propositions and so forth go on the ballot over the course of the last 10, 15 years, for free range this and free range that and so forth, because nobody wants to see animals cooped up like that, simply to live a short life and then be, butchered and Safeway. That's one of the beauties of hunting is that they are free range, they are organic, they are hormone free and all the things that I think everybody wants their food to be. I mean, wild game is just that, and in most cases, if not all cases, much better for you anyway,
right?
Than something that's purchased, out of.
And as you're talking about that, you guys just brought us over some jerky venison jerky. Is that what it's called? Venison jerky.
Yeah.
Amazing. And if I could go back, the first time that I ever saw like wildlife, right? I was 8 years old. And I went to my grandfather's house. My grandfather who has passed, but I was 8 and they had a basement and he said, we've got pinball machines downstairs. I had no idea he was a hunter, right? And he's like, we got pinball machines downstairs. And I'm like, really? Can I go play? And he said, yeah. So I remember running down the stairwell and all of a sudden it was a refrigerator freezer down there also. And there's these 2 deer hanging from this pole right up there. Cause again, they've got to, everything's got to drain, right? I was like, oh my God. And I went running upstairs. I'm like, Grandpa, you didn't tell me. And he's like, yeah, you've been eating that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Grandpa. But it's just interesting how, I really do feel for me, if I would have lived a life with my grandfather in that environment, and having that kind of knowledge, right? It's like, it's the way that you live in a rural area. But then going from being a city girl in San Jose and hearing everything, right? It's not only what I see, but what you hear from others, right? That, oh, you shouldn't shoot things and this and that. You just get in that mindset. It's all about experience. And so now being here, and again, through you, right? Going to your house. And I think every time that I'd gone to your house when I was in San Jose and I'd visit you guys, I'd always have some kind of education that you'd provide for me. And I'd be like, okay, that makes sense. Because all I would hear was, the San Jose side of it, or, somebody who, we all had the same views there. You can't learn unless you want to be open to it and educate yourself. And again, being here, I am grateful because I've really had to learn not only what you have taught me and my sister has taught me, but what I've had to learn on my own land about protecting my livestock, about, that we have, wildlife out here that can actually really harm my dogs, right? And so what is it that you do? Well, you have to go to, you have to be safe, right? And so I'm going to go into this portion of it that I I have never been comfortable with a firearm. And it's just me, it's just my way. However, Tyler is now, my son, Tyler is now looking into getting a firearm. And I'm grateful that now that I'm here, I'm grateful that he is not fearful of that. And I will tell you why. I live on land where it's 5 acres. My neighbors are a ways from me. If somebody comes to my home, I'm a sitting duck, right? And I am not comfortable with a firearm. I'm grateful that my son came with me and that he's comfortable with firearm. Now, taking a step forward, in order for him to get his firearm, I went with him yesterday to purchase the firearm. And this is what I can say. So I have been in a place where, you know, we do want restrictions on how people get firearms, correct? We, in San Jose, it's like, you know, you have these people that are, you know, have mental illnesses or just wackadoodles, right? And they have firearms. Yesterday, I was able to watch my son go through the process of getting a firearm. And the extremes that they go through in order for him to get the firearm, this is what sold me on the background check for firearms. And again, I come from a place where it's like, no, we need to do more. We need to do more. Well, this was more for me. This was what I needed to see, right? In order to know the process. So yesterday, Tyler and I went into the place and he's already gone through, is it CCW training? Is that what it's called?
He did go through his concealed carry, yes.
Yeah, so he needs to finish his CCW training, right? So he wants to have a firearm in order to finish that up. Now, even before he can consider buying a firearm, he had to take this extensive test that actually, I believe, goes to the Department of Justice, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. So he took this test, right? And he has to pass it by 70%. And there were 30 questions on there. So he went through that. He only missed 2. Let me just give him a shout out. So he went through that process. Now, in order for him to even purchase the gun, he had to have his ID with his current mailing address. We didn't have the current mailing address because we just moved here in April. So we had to go down to the DMV and we had to do this process of getting him his driver's license, right? Mm-hmm. Then Tyler, not only that, but Tyler had to have his passport. So we brought his passport. He had to have his hunting license. We brought his hunting license. He had a name change in 2017. They wanted to see that legal document of his name change. At that point, right, he had all that documentation. You pay for the firearm, then it takes 10 days for you to get that firearm. Why does it take 10 days? Because they do this extensive background check, not only on his name now, but his name prior, to make sure he doesn't have any issues, right? They won't even give you the firearm for 10 days. For me, to be completely honest, coming from a place where I'm like, no, we need more regulations, right? And buying fire, this is exactly what I needed to see in order to say, you know what, we are doing things right. People are just, these guns are just getting in the wrong hands of people, you know, thieves, whatever. I will say the process to get a firearm today in California, like for my son or anybody else, it's the way it should be. It really is.
Right. And that's a great story, Maria. I had not heard that. I knew that you had gone down to help Tyler shop for a gun yesterday. I didn't know that I knew what you'd had to go through.
Right.
I never thought about the fact that you were being exposed to it for the first time. Yeah.
And to be completely honest, I really needed that. I feel like things happen to you in life because it's all about experience. It's what you need. Right. I needed that experience to see that in order to say, you know what, they really are going to lengths to regulate and make sure that these firearms don't go into the wrong hands. You know what I'm saying? For 10 days to do an investigation. I mean, I commend, you know, the DOJ. Is it the DOJ that does the investigation?
Yeah.
Okay, so they're doing an investigation under his 2 names. And I am really proud to say I experienced that whole process, and I am proud to say that it is thorough.
Yeah, you know what's interesting is you know, I'm a political advocate for the whole host of conservation organizations that deal with wildlife and hunting, and I'm blessed to do that. I've dedicated my life to doing that because I care so deeply about it. I'm down at the Capitol all the time. Of course, now with COVID, a lot of it's done
Right.
remote for that as well. But so I am constantly dealing with a very urban, legislator, because the 80% of our legislature comes from the Bay Area, Los Angeles, and so forth, and they're elected by people like a lot of the people that you were surrounded with and worked with in San Jose.
Right.
So those same legislators have the same beliefs that the people that you're used to when you were living in the city had as well. So they represent those beliefs, and we see countless firearms related legislation. I mean, just crazy stuff. Problem is, criminals are the ones that are causing the illegal firearms violence. Criminals don't care about the law.
Right.
So what's unfortunate about that is criminals, if they buy a gun on the street, they don't go through a background check, right? I mean, and if the state legislator passes a law that says that Bill must do this in order to own a firearm or what have you, or this gun is illegal, Bill's going to go through those steps. Bill's going to forfeit those guns, that have suddenly been deemed illegal in California or whatever. There's a million things they do to try to curb guns and do gun control here in the state. But the criminals, the nut jobs that are causing the violence, they're not. So all they're doing is taking guns out of law-abiding citizens, and that's extremely frustrating.
Right. And the thing is, I'm not trying to throw anybody under the bus in San Jose or in big cities, because I will tell you, I get it. I totally get it. I was there. And I think that what I've done, not only because I have a sister who lives in real rural, you and Wanda who live in the rural area, and I had to learn it throughout the years of just coming to visit, right? But also coming here and now living and understanding it, I have to be open-minded in order to protect my livestock and to live here comfortably and safely, right? And so again, I'm not condemning anybody that has that viewpoint. I would just hope that people would open their minds to allowing themselves to think outside the city. Again, if I still lived in San Jose, living in my townhome next to neighbors and stuff, I probably still wouldn't be looking to educate myself about, the outdoors, right? But you come to a point where, again, here I am, right? The silver lining in COVID for me. And here I am, and I'm having to learn in this new experience of how to take care of my land and how to take care of my animals, and just having to take care of me and my, my family. And so part of that is understanding why things happen the way they do in the outdoors, right? And understanding how to protect my livestock and my family.
I've often said to the people that I work with that do care deeply about wildlife management and the future of our outdoor traditions and so forth, that when it comes to the folks that live in the city that don't understand hunting, don't support hunting, don't understand the Second Amendment or people owning firearms, so forth, a lot of that's our fault, because we have not taken the time to go and try to educate them as to why hunting is important to wildlife management, why that revenue is so critical to conservation efforts on the ground, wildlife research, habitat restoration enhancement, so on and so forth. And so that's something that as a outdoor community that we're trying to get our arms around. How do we do that? With you, if I could take every single one of those folks that lives currently in the city and put them through the same process that you've gone through in the last 6 months, that would be perfect. Can't do that. But I do think that you're a perfect example that if we could better educate, people in the city as to the values of hunting, the role that hunting plays in the wildlife conservation model, money on the ground and all of those things, the traditions of sporting arms, right? If you're going to go out and hunt ducks, good luck with a slingshot or a bow and arrow, right? You need firearms to do a lot of this stuff,
right?
And so just the importance of all those things, educate them the way that you've been educated. That would be ideal. And I really think that I think most, if not almost all of those people would, like you, become supportive of our outdoor traditions.
Right. And I think
many of them would probably want to take the step and get engaged in going out hunting or going out recreational shooting or whatever.
Right. And I believe it starts with leadership, right? And so what I would say, if you're asking me, how do we get to the people, right? And again, for me, it's all about your environment where you live, and that's what you thrive. That's what you learn about, right? It's the environment. Like when I worked and I still work for the housing department, but I learned all about the homeless community. I learned about low income housing, and so I know all about that, right? Because I lived it and I was in the environment. And now that I live here, I'm living the experience in a different way, right? And my goal is to educate myself on how to live here, in a rural environment. And I do believe that in order to educate people, like in big cities, like San Francisco, like San Jose, to educate them on this type of wildlife, and hunting and this kind of stuff, it really does have to come from like a mayor downward type of thing, because this is what I've learned, that we take direction from the mayor, right? It comes from the mayor, then it goes to the city manager, and then it goes down to staff. And so when the mayor is educated and he or she know the topic, it's easy for it to trickle down, right? And so I just think that we need the ears of mayors in all cities, not just San Jose, San Francisco, but Concord, even Placerville, get them all together and talk about it. What is the importance and what are the fears, right? I had fears. I still have fears. Guns for me to shoot, it's difficult. You've seen me, and I am grateful that I have a son that's very comfortable, right? In order to live in an area where we need it, but I do believe if we had some kind of leadership that we can have like a round table of mayors and just talk about it, right? And through all the various communities, how it relates. I think that would be a very effective way of it having a trickle down effect.
And as you know, the Outdoor View was something that was started by your sister, my wife,
right?
Wanda. We did an interview with her just a couple of days ago.
Right.
And one of the primary, reasons for her wanting to create the Outdoor View was as an educational tool, for people that want to know more about wildlife management, wildlife conservation, outdoor activities, far beyond hunting, hiking, whatever, right?
Right.
As kind of a one-stop shop for people to just learn more about those topics so they can get more engaged.
Right. And again, Wanda was a very city-oriented person also until she met you. So what I want to say to viewers right now is that I come from a background of having the fear of, not guns not being regulated, right, as they should be. And then going through the experience, okay, I'm like, okay, wait a minute, let me check that now, right? Because I just went through the experience yesterday and it was very thorough. I mean, we're 10 days out. He can't even have a firearm. In the same sense where I have, wildlife on my land, and if I have a lion mountain that's going after my goat, what do I got? Right? So you have to change your mindset. And again, I was totally me, I was totally on that other side, right? But I didn't understand it all. I didn't understand the process. I didn't understand the need. And now that I'm here and now that I'm educating myself, I feel better about it. And I can tell you today that even if I lived in San Jose and I got the education that I have now, I would change my thought in San Jose, only because the only reason this has pushed me into educating myself more, right? And so that has been a blessing because I totally understand how people view things in the way they do, because again, it comes from where your environment is, right? Your experience. And so I say, live in the experience and learn from it. And if you can be open enough to educate yourself, you can learn a whole lot. What I've learned too, you educate yourself in what you need to be educated in, right? So in housing, I would educate myself over and over in all kinds of stuff, right? And here, now I've got to educate myself in wildlife. And so I have, and it's really opened my eyes to a lot of things that I viewed differently when I lived in San Jose, but I've been forced to be educated, and I'm grateful for that.
It's funny because when you moved up here, it's not like, I made it as one of my top priorities to educate you on this stuff. It just happened,
Right.
right? Same with your sister. When we got married 35 plus years ago, I didn't, try to educate her on hunting. And now she's got her hunting license. She's got her CCW. I mean, she has her own guns and so on and so forth. So it
Right.
just kind of happened. So I think people learning more, those that are open-minded enough to learn more about the other side, if you will. And that works
Right.
both ways. I get it, right? I think what we'll find that hunting and shooting is something that's not to be afraid of. In a lot of ways, should be embraced. Especially hunting. I mean, because the hunters and the hunting community have a centuries old proud tradition, right? I mean, the overwhelming majority of wildlife you see today wouldn't be there if it
Right.
wasn't for hunters, because we're the ones not only that are pumping money into the ground for habitat management, wildlife research, and all those things, we're also the ones that take steps to protect those wildlife, even those game species. I mean, hunting is heavily regulated.
Right.
You got seasons, you got bag limits, and all of those are based on the best available science. We don't do any of that on emotions. It's all based on science. That's the kind of stuff I do every day, right?
Right.
You mentioned about your mountain lions, by the way. Let me warn you, if one goes after your goats, you can't just go out there and pop it. I mean,
Right.
This is another example of wildlife management. You've got to go to the Department of Fish and Wildlife. You've got to get a depredation permit before you can even think about shooting a mountain lion or any bear or anything that's depredating on.
See, this is all the things that I need to know.
Right. So all that stuff is very heavily regulated. It's all based on science. It's just not let's go out and whack them and stack them, which some people think that's the case. That's not the case at all.
Yeah. Well, okay, so let me ask you this question. So while we're on the topic, if there was a mountain lion going after one of my dogs, we can't do anything about that. It's just like fair game.
Yeah, no, you can't. You have to. You can call the department and ask for a depredation permit, but they're going to require you. In the case of mountain lions, they're going to require you to take X number of non-lethal steps for getting rid of that mountain lion before they'll let you actually take that mountain.
Okay, well, that's a phone call I need to make then, because again, I'm learning, and I need to make that phone call in order to know exactly the steps I need to take before because we've had neighbors who have posted that they've had mountain lions in their backyard, and that's the reason why too. I've learned also that we need to have our goats in the stall at night. So Tyler and I, we walk the goats from the open area into the stalls that's all enclosed because we don't want any wildlife to get to them.
Well, in fact, I mentioned to you that one of my good friends that lives, I don't know, 5-10 miles from you lost 2 sheep to mountain lions just about a month ago.
Yeah.
And so same thing. Yeah. And they couldn't do anything about it either. They've even got documentation on their trail cameras of the mountain lions dragging their sheep off. But what can you do? Right. I know it's sad. But anyway, it just goes to show that wildlife, whether they be game species or non-game species, which mountain lions are, they're heavily managed in California, and it's hunters that largely pay for that management and the habitats as well. So we've got a proud tradition, but a lot of people don't know that. You know that, but others.
Okay, you're going to have to send me that phone number to contact the place I need to because I do want to take the right steps if one were to come on the property and what I could do.
I will definitely do that. So anyway, we probably should start wrapping up, but let me ask you this. What most excites you, about the outdoors now that you're actually out there living in it?
Oh my gosh, what can't I say? What can I say? I have hummingbirds that come to my flowers. I mean, I see it all. They come to my flower. You see them pollinating, going inside. I see deer in the backyard. We've got wild rabbit out here. We see turkeys out in front. The beauty is endless. The trees, my goats. I love my goats. I have a black lab. I have a puppy black lab, Bo. I've got my 2 other dogs that I love to death. This is what life is all about, the peace that goes into it. I truly do believe that when you live in an environment where there's nature around, and deer and rabbits and stuff, I do feel like it brings this calmness where I'm probably going to live longer.
right?
I'm probably going to, they say if you're in an environment where, it's relaxed and you have wildlife and I'm pruning I've never even pruned stuff before. And I'm learning how to prune stuff and plant stuff and maintain it. And so I'm learning all of these great things.
Yeah, there's no question that I know since I spent a fair amount of time with you since you moved up here, that you're definitely in a better place
Yeah.
emotionally as well.
And another thing is too, the number one reason why I love it here is because I made a choice to be closer to family, right? And so it has been such a blessing. We go over each other's houses and have gatherings, and it's just been it's been so great, so great.
Yeah, no,
Dogs run around, everybody runs around. It's a free for all.
It's a lot of fun, absolutely.
Yeah.
We enjoy having you up here, and would love to work with you on trying to gently educate a lot of your friends in San Jose and many others in the urban areas about the values of the outdoor country lifestyle, if you will, and hunting and hiking and all those activities that go with it. So
definitely,
we could talk forever, and we're going to have to schedule another interview soon,
right?
Because there's stuff that we couldn't even have time for that I'd love to chat with you about. But thank you for taking the time today. Tell our viewers, just how they can stay in touch with the Outdoor View.
Well, I encourage you, again, I come from a background of, living in San Jose all of my life, and I have come to this area. I've been educated. I've opened my eyes to a lot of new things that has caused me to look at things differently, right? Not just differently. And I would encourage you all to come, because this is a candid conversation. I'm being completely honest with how I feel. How I tell you, I'm not comfortable with the firearm. I'm grateful my son does, right? Because I'm in an environment. So this is a total candid conversation with people who are going to be completely honest with you and share feelings totally honestly. And the way to stay informed is to come back to www.theoutdoorview.org. And I encourage you guys to watch whenever you can watch a video. I know that Wanda has provided one, Bill's going to provide one. They're going to be interviewing other people to educate us. That's what I need. I need education. So I will be watching this all the time. And I'm looking forward to coming out here, Bill, when we can interview the goats. Kind of give everybody a little feel of how it is to have goats in their, on their property, and what the goal is for the goats. They're my tools, but they're my pets first. But they are tools,
Right. Yeah, they're sweet little critters. I love those guys. They're funny. Well, thank you, Maria, and again, www.theoutdoorview.org. We do plenty of interviews. As time goes on, I want to dive into interviewing, some of the organizations that are doing this good stuff on the ground.
Right.
And some of the folks from the Department of Fish and Wildlife, the state agency that we work with on wildlife management issues and so forth. And just talk to some of these people, have a candid conversation like this to kind of give people a window into who those people are, what those organizations are, and what they do and how they can support them as well. So we can all join together and try to build a strong future for wildlife and outdoor related activities here in California.
That'd be great.
All righty, Maria. You have a good evening.
Thank
you so much for your time. I enjoyed this. It was a lot of fun.
I did too.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.